welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, that is the R in the RK Stumbling Bear, and I am a reader and a writer. And I am back to do another Exploding Books. First, we are going to talk about the books that were on my list before, and did I read them or not? And then we are going to choose some new books for this year. And I'm not going to be picking books that I use for my buzzword challenge because I went to read a lot of the books that are on my physical TBR shelf. Alright, so jumping in. I have a 3x4 cube behind me, so it worked out like to 12 books. And how I do my TBR bookshelf is my first shelf is like literary fiction. I have some romance thrown in there, but it's fiction that isn't science fiction or fantasy. This shelf is all fantasy. This shelf right behind me, science fiction, and then the one below that you can't see is nonfiction. So starting with my general fiction, just mashup shelf, I have The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, and I never read it, so this is going away. I did start it, and I just never jived with it, and it's not going to leave my TBR list, it's just physically leaving my shelf. So if I decide in the future I want to read it, I'll just get it from the library. Is that a bit of a cheat? I don't know, but it's a classic and I find that I have to be in a certain mood to read classics. Then I have Mr. Penumbrum's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan, and I never finished it. So this is also going away. This, however, is going back to my sister because I borrowed this many, many years ago from her. Probably what's going to happen is I'm going to give her that book back and she's going to be like, I own this? So then the last thing from that shelf was Love and Color, which was a series of short stories that was supposed to have like a fantastical element to them, and it didn't work for me, so I actually DNF'd it and I've already passed it on. Going to my fantasy shelf, I have A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This was an arc that I got, and I had started reading it and just lost interest, so this is going away. I also had Savage Legion by Matt Wallace, and nope, I just didn't end up picking it up, so it's also going away. And then I have The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I loved Mistborn, or the Final Empire, the first book in this trilogy, and then we get into this, and I bounced hard off of it once Zane entered it, because you're setting up a love triangle. No, just focus on your relationship. Don't start getting interested in somebody else new, not when you're in a serious one. What type of flake are you, Vin? That's kind of how I felt, and I just never have picked the book up since. I think I'm actually going to DNF this series. I mean, I'll always love the first Mistborn and will reread it, but I'm just not interested in what happens afterwards. Going to my sci-fi shelf, I have Escaping First Contact by T.S. Byer. This one just didn't end up working for me. It should have. I love space opera, but I think I just felt like too much world building was thrown at me at the very beginning, which is odd because if you've watched my favorite books of 2024, one of the big themes is world building in there. So this didn't work for me, unfortunately. Then from my sci-fi shelves, I pulled Harrow the Ninth because I needed some external pressure. And I did read this, and I loved it. And if you haven't watched my favorites of the year video yet, one, why haven't you? But two, here's the link because this made the list. Also from my sci-fi shelf, I pulled Kendra by Octavia Butler. And this one I have DNF'd. I don't like time travel stories. I just don't. I'm going to try something else by Octavia Butler, but it's not going to be Kindred. I actually watched a really good video by Whitney over at the Secret Sauce of Storycraft, I think is her channel, where she did a Octavia Butler breakdown of the books, and she even agreed that Kindred isn't necessarily her favorite. So I was like, okay, that gives me hope that I will like something else. Then from my nonfiction shelf, I picked up Digging for Richard III, which I did finish and loved. It was a really fascinating read about an archaeological dig and how that archaeological dig came about, how they decided where to dig, and then just how they used modern science to come to certain conclusions. I passed this on for other people to read, but I did really enjoy it, and if you like history and archaeology books, I would say go pick this up. I then have Prisoners of Geography, and I did not read it, but this also is not my book, it's my husband's, so it's going to go to his bookshelf now, so it's not actually leaving the house. And then I also have ADHD 2.0, and I also have not finished this, and it's not leaving the house either. It's going to go over to my resource books because I do want to finish this. I did get farther into it, just with all the other reading priorities I had, I didn't end up finishing it. So I'm keeping it, but it's going to go to my resource side of the house. And that is how I did on my 2024 Exploding Books. And now it's time to choose new ones for this year. So the camera is going to move. Sorry about that. Starting with my shelf that is just general fiction, we're gonna end up choosing a book from each cube. So looking at this one, see, I'm tempted to go for the big one just because it gets a big one off. I could go for poetry, which isn't something I read very often. Or I can go for something that my parents gave me and I have no clue what it's about. This is kind of hard. I think we're going to go with The Blind Light. I'm not sure how I got this. I don't even remember what it's about, but we're going to go with this book. And then over here, I think I'm going to go with Island of Wings. This was a book I got from Margaret Pernard in a package that I had won from her, and I want to get it read. There is some books in the back, but we're going to go ahead and go for the big chunky one, The Little Women. I feel like I read this at one point in time, but I don't remember it, or I didn't read all of it, so we're going to go with this. All right, so down to my fantasy shelves. For this one, I am going with Genevieve. This is something I won as a Goodreads giveaway back when I joined Goodreads in like 2012, and I've never read it, so it's time for it to be read. Then going to this cubby, I think I'm going to go with this one. This is All the Tides of Fate. This is also something I won from a Goodreads giveaway. This is book 2, but I have read book 1, and then I just never continued on to book 2. And I think it's a duology, so then this will wrap things up. So let's go ahead and finish the duology. I'll just put that in later. And then this one has lots of fun ones in here. But I think that I want to go with The Lies of Locke-Lamora. I have heard so much about this book, and over the years have been told I needed to read it so many times, and I never got around to it. And then I actually picked up my own copy, and it's still not got around to it. So this is the year that I need to read this. Then coming down to my sci-fi shelf. And I realize I have The Veil of Solom, which actually I think is historical fiction, so it should be up there now. And this one is kind of hard because a lot of these I am going to be reading for my buzzword-a-thon prompt. So I could either read another story in this collection. I could read a different story in this collection that's not The War of the Worlds. I could read this one. The Other Side of the Sun. I think for this one, I'm going to go with Let's Make Progress. I'm going to read the second story in this big, huge omnibus. Going on to my next shelf. And this one, I am not certain. Oh wait, yes I am. I want to read How Long Until Black Future Month. It's something I've been wanting to read for years. Found a copy. Let's get this read. And then, as you can see, I have another double shelf. I like to do this. I'm really not certain on this one. I know it has parts of series, which could be interesting. Let's go with an Alan Dean. Let's go with an Alan Dean Foster book. Let's go with Orphan Star, because I think this is actually my dad's, and then I can give it back to him and make room on my shelf. So then we have my nonfiction shelf. And this one definitely, I am doing Voyager's Grand Tour. I love space history, and I picked this up specifically knowing that I was going to want to read about this. This is about the satellite Voyager, so we're reading this year. And I think that I'm going to continue with the space history, and we're going to read Starman. And this is coming from the perspective of Russian cosmonauts, Yuri Gagarin. And the last one. Ooh. There are some ones back there, but I think I want to go just with ghost stories. And this is going to be about soldiers. So, yeah. So there you have it. I have now chosen 12 more books to read, and we will see if they explode or not. Out of the 12 I chose last year, I read 2, and I DNF'd 2, and then all the rest basically exploded. So it's at least an effective challenge to get books off of my physical TBR shelf, because I definitely will keep adding things. That's not a problem for me. Let me know what you think of the books I have chosen. Do you think that I will get them read? Do you think that, or do you think that they will explode? Please make your bets and wagers down below, because I would love to know. Thank you, and have a great day.